What is gerrymandering? How does it apply to American politics? And how can it be prevented in the future so that the world's democracies can be as representative of their voters as possible? Let's take a look in today's video. First, let's give a simple description of how gerrymandering works. We believe that the best way it can be described was said in an interview by Dr. Jeremy Mayer. That's not the voters choosing their representatives, that's the representatives choosing their voters. But to more easily explain how it works, let us show you a physical representation. Here we have a state with 15 Republicans and 10 Democrats. So we can tell that if everyone votes, 60% of voters are going to be voting red, while 40% are going to be voting blue. Therefore, representation in the state's congressional seats should mimic that: 3/5 red, 2/5 blue. But that isn't always the case. Depending on how you arrange those congressional districts, you can obtain different results. Sure, if we draw the congressional boundaries vertically, 3 out of the 5 become Republican and 2 out of the 5 become Democratic. Oh, yay! Everything's perfect in this political utopia. Now let's go skipping through our fields of flowers and marvel in our global state of peace. I'm just kidding. To think that's the way politics plays out is frankly delusional. No, instead, we get stuck with gerrymandering. See, everyone has their bias, especially when the political parties, whoever's in control at a given time, are the ones drawing the maps and drawing the district boundaries. If the Republicans are in power, then they could try drawing the boundaries horizontally, meaning that all of the districts are Republican. Now, you have a state where 40% of the population votes Democratic, but 100% of the seats are Republican. But don't think that this only goes one way, and that the Republicans are the only ones gerrymandering districts. Many Democrats have also participated in their fair share of geographical election rigging. Let's assume that the Democrats win for an election, and then they're allowed to redistrict. What's stopping them from using this map? A map in which we have the same ratio of voters, 60% Republican, 40% Democratic. But 3 out of 5 districts are Democratic, and only 2 of 5 districts are Republican. That's 60-40, but the other way around. This scenario is actually a fantastic representation of the 2 main principles we find in gerrymandering: packing and cracking. Packing is what we can see in the 2 Republican districts. If you're a Democrat responsible for redistricting, you want to focus on packing as many Republicans together as possible. That way, votes that could have been used to get a majority vote within a district end up being wasted. You only need 3 votes to win a district of 5, so in each of the 100% Republican districts, they're wasting 2 votes. Alongside that, you use cracking for the rest of the Republican voters. If they get separated, then they become a minority in each of the remaining 3 districts, allowing the Democrats to always have slightly more voters in those districts, allowing them to consistently win by small margins, with little risk of being unseated from their congressional position. This is demonstrated well by the 40% Republican, 60% Democratic districts. You need 3 votes to win. The Democrats have exactly 3 votes in each of those 2 districts. They're not wasting any votes. But hey, that's all theoretical. In real life, wouldn't doing that be much more difficult? Since real demographics are complex. Well, yes, but actually no. This is where the professionals come in, like Thomas Hoffler, who uses complex mathematics and demographics to gerrymander districts as efficiently as possible, which ends up creating abominations like this. I'm sorry, but this looks like someone spilled some ink on a map and said, well, there's no going back, that's a district. But seriously, when you have a system whose only rules were that the districts had to be contiguous, can't have gaps, and have to have roughly the same population, this is what you get. But don't worry, they've recently added a new rule. No racial gerrymandering. Wait a second. Are you telling us that up until a few years ago, it was completely legal in America to gerrymander districts in order to disadvantage minority groups? How? How is that? How would that have been legal? The only reason that racial gerrymandering is no longer allowed is because of this map. North Carolina's redistricting was found to be unconstitutional because of how it had a disproportionately negative effect on minority communities by packing and cracking them. But don't worry, they came back with a new map and openly made the argument, oh, don't worry, this time it's not racially gerrymandered. We're not disadvantaging minorities. This time it's partisanly gerrymandered. We're just negatively impacting the other party. And it was accepted. How? How was this accepted? Seriously, look at the map of the United States. Most districts in many states are at least somewhat, if not hugely, gerrymandered. Oh, gosh. Sorry, I need to calm down. I'm not used to dealing with gerrymandering. It's an advantage of living outside the United States. I don't want to feed into the cliche that Canada is politically superior to the US, because the truth is that Canada also has its fair share of problems with the political system. One isn't inherently better than the other. But we got 99 problems, but gerrymandering ain't one of them. Compare the districts you see on the US map to this. I personally prefer this one. But we have to ask ourselves, how do we get from here to here? It's not a simple process. You have to remove the power to redistrict from the politicians. Regardless of what party you affiliate with, you need to make sure that everyone gets a fair shot. Because no party will stay in power forever, and at some point, your party, Republican or Democratic, will be on the receiving end of undemocratic gerrymandering from the other party, since the coin has two sides. While your party's in power, it may seem fantastic to have gerrymandering. But when that party isn't in power anymore, the other side can gerrymander to set you back, making the climb to power even more difficult. Politicians should not be the ones tasked with redistricting. Instead, it should be a non-partisan organization, not affiliated with any political party. And this is coming from someone who wants to be a politician later in life. I'd prefer for an election's winner to be determined based on their qualifications, policies, and ideas, not some unfair map drawn to bend the system. And I'd like to show you that this argument isn't partisan. Both Republican and Democratic states have the same gerrymandering problem. This needs to be a situation in which both Democrats and Republicans work together. Both Republican and Democratic states have converted over to non-partisan commissions, and so can the rest of America. The politicians aren't going to switch over without some convincing, so it's time for Americans of all walks of life to make some noise about this issue. This old problem has to finally be buried once and for all. It's been going on for centuries. The first instance of gerrymandering was committed by former Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry in 1812. Also, of course, gerrymandering is pronounced incorrectly. Everything about this is wrong. It may have gone on for 2 centuries, but it has to be ended now. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing for more content like it. Also, we have some further readings about this in the description under the video, so if you're interested, feel free to check it out. Have a great day. Bye!